There with a 24-hour, not 24-hour, but yeah, 24-hour, but more generally there with an open door policy. Yeah, 24/7. It is a 24/7 position. Accessible. You know, and just again, does all he can to address. I'm kind of thinking of this question as, because you said the people of Templeton, maybe people who come in with issues and those sort of things. So that's what I'm trying to focus the question on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Our next question is from Selectman Haley Brooks.
Hi, Frank. Welcome back.
Thank you.
If you should be offered the position, do you feel that you will be willing to travel daily to and from work on a long-term basis?
Travel to and from work. Well, I plan to locate as closely as possible. I don't know if that's...
Currently, you're where?
Oh,
Just remind me again, you're in Vermont, correct?
Oh, I certainly would
So-
be commuting from there, 75 miles. Absolutely not. And I'm not tied there, I'm leasing right now, and
Okay.
don't really have a family at this point to drag around, so I'm very easily mobile. But no, I'd be, and in all of my manager administrative position, I don't know what your policy is here, but even when it wasn't a policy, most communities do have a policy of living town. I always have. Number one, as I say, I don't like commuting, but I think it's important for the administrator to, or manager to live in the community in which he or she manages.
Okay, great, thank you.
So certainly, and I also think it's important to be close because, as I say, I want to be accessible and be there. And I have found sometimes when you have a huge snowstorm or something, I was one of the few that got in because I made it a point to live close.
Okay, great, thank you.
Our next question will be from Selectman Columbus.
What kind of work interests you the most, and what are you passionate about?
This profession, municipal work, it really is. And that's why I'm still pursuing a new position in the profession. I love government in general, but really have taken a liking to local. It's where I've worked in most, although I have worked some in state and some in nonprofits. And then I've worked in quite a few different industries in the private sector as well. But I really am passionate very much, almost as much as the first day, about the municipal profession.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yep, sure.
What part of municipal government, is there one thing you like doing better than others?
Good question. No, to be honest, I really like it. I really like it all, and that's one reason why I like the position of town administrator and manager, because you wind up doing all of it, getting involved in just about everything. I think I've found out that, and I'm sure I think Bob might remember this, the key things, there's like 3 or 4 major things you're always doing, and that's HR, personnel, human resources, public relations, and finance. And I happen to like all of those quite a bit, but I found that those areas take up a majority of your time. And but then you have a bunch of other things too, like contracting out, purchasing, and a whole sort of other things, utilities and everything. So I like the variety, and I like those 3 things quite a bit as well. So that's why I like the municipal profession as well as being in this position, because you get to do all of those.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, and I have the next question.
All right.
Templeton is a small town. Our citizens expect their public officials to be available and accessible to them. How do you interact with citizens, and what concrete actions have you taken in your previous jobs to improve direct services and communication to citizens?
As I kind of mentioned a little bit the first question, I think it's very important the way the administrator or manager reacts with citizens. I try to make them obviously feel at home, that I'm someone that they can talk to, I'm approachable, and I've been told people consider me as that, and they were, and that's one reason I think I haven't had any complaints yet about the citizenry. But that's one thing, being accessible and open and knowledgeable. That's one other thing too. I may go to that first question, is I hope people consider me very knowledgeable. I try to understand their problem, whatever it may be, even if it's out of my realm. I'll do my, and I am one of those people that has broad interest in studies, so I try to make sure that I can understand and empathize. I think that's very important, is empathizing, empathy with people and showing that. And there was a second half to that question, I'm sorry.
That's okay. What concrete actions have you taken in your previous jobs to improve direct services and communication with citizens?
Yep, I think we talked a bit about transparency in the first. I think that's very important. Using the website, most people nowadays want just about everything on the website and accessible. You're already doing a great job with it, it looks like, but I would definitely continue on with that. Making it a seamless process when they come in and work with the town. I've found that I've had to work on that in some towns I've been in. You know, make all the departments work together as best as possible in a seamless way, so they don't have to go to many different departments, or if they do, they don't get a different story wherever they go.
Thank you. Our next question is...
I'm sorry, can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
You've talked a lot about open door policy, and how would you manage your time having an open door policy with all the demands of this job, given the crisis that we have right now? And I get open door, but I mean, how would you actually get the work done too?
Absolutely, and that's always a challenge. That is a very big challenge. That is a challenge. I have not, luckily, because I've always had that policy, and the communities I've worked in, again, I've mentioned some crises I have had, but even when they're not, they were we had lean staff in most, maybe one was an exception, one community was an exception that I worked with. So I've always had to be there as an administrator and doing my day job, so to speak, as well, you know, working and making sure that the other, you know, being there for the department heads and the other employees, and as well. Luckily, I've not had a problem with that. I have found that there have been many 10 and 12-hour days, though, and it goes back to my another thing I said. This is a 24/7 position, and I found more often than not it's been over 55, 60 hours a week you'll put in, and you just have to be willing to do that. You'll wind up budgeting or what have you. You'll take the work home with you if you want to have a different scenery and change of pace as well.
Okay.
But no, that's one of the challenges, but I really haven't found it a problem.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Tim.
Sure.
It's good you recognize that too.
And our next question is from Selectman Farrell.
Do you feel it is more important to focus on town operations or public relations? And please explain your response.
Always hard to choose, but that's one of those. Remember, I mentioned three most important things we would do, and those are two of those three. Well, obviously, there's a lot of us here that participate in the public relations, though. Obviously, you're the elected officials directly with public, so lots of people. Whereas the town administrator, of course, is going to be really the only one overseeing the day-to-day operations of the administration. If you had to give one a little more, I would think it would have to be the administration, just for that reason. Again, I look at them individually, but if I had to pick one, and especially if you're in a crisis mode, you're going to have to focus on that administration and getting it back and keeping it running well. Hopefully you can have a good, if you've got a good staff that works with you, and you all can work well together, you don't have to choose from those. And I haven't had to. I've put in the hours so that neither of those gets sacrificed. So it's a real tough one to pick. That's a real tough question.
It is.
Thank you very much. Our next question is from Selectwoman Harry Burris.
Can you describe for us a very difficult performance issue you've had to deal with? What made it difficult, and how did you handle it? Have you ever had to fire someone? What steps did you take, and how did you handle that? Those are just some.
Yes, I have. And probably the most difficult one was when I did have to terminate someone. It was a while back. I won't go into specifics because we don't really offend anyone who do anything improper, but it was an issue where I will mention one thing. It was a very prominent person in the community or family, so it made it more tough in that respect as well. And so I had no better way to say it, but pressure all around. Kind of, what are you gonna do on this? Everyone's waiting. And, you know, in the end, I had to do the right thing. And luckily, the board stood behind me on it. I knew it wouldn't be easy after I made the decision. But again, but the way to approach it is, well, number one, was this more about like a personnel? Yeah, because you said fire, right?
Yeah,
But it's a
performance
personnel
issue.
issue. Obviously, very important is to follow your policy. I've dealt with many of these and with attorney recommendations and everything. Number one, follow your policy, make sure treat everyone fair. I want to hear all sides of the story. I definitely do not have any preconceived notions. Even if it seems that it is an open shut case, I want to make sure that I'm very careful to lay my groundwork, not only for being fair to the employee, but also to protect the town legally. Another thing, I've cut my legal expenses quite a bit in my towns because I do really try to follow the protocol so that we don't get in those issues. Because it's easy to say, sure, you may not be at fault and you'll win in the end. But by the time you go through all that process, you spend thousands and thousands of dollars. So fairness and protecting the town is important.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Selectman Morrison.
Templeton is blessed with many interested and capable citizens who are interested in serving on town committees. What is your experience working with citizens committees, and what do you feel is the town administrator's proper role with citizens committees appointed by the selectmen to address specific issues?
Well, I've had very good relations with a lot of my committees. As in the New England tradition, all the towns I've been in have had quite a number of committees. One, I think, had enough of 20. And it depends, just to jump to your question, it depends on what the board's feeling is on that. I have had the board say, reappoint them, that you're the one that's going to take care of all the issues. And obviously, that's the easiest way. I'm there. Others wanted to, depending on the issue, maybe be a little more involved directly with the board. But in 90%, 85% of the time, I've been the one that has interacted. Committees need something from the administration, and they just want to. And I've always made myself open door to them as well. And I've had actually a couple of good recommendations from a couple of my committees I've worked with. So always have worked with committees, very familiar with committees, all of them, whether they're officially appointed ones, ones in the statutes or ad hoc. Just there for a while, I have always worked with all the committees and have been the one that has been the point man to tend to them. And I think I might want to just say that I think they're very important. It's so great to see some of the talent you get on some of these committees. And they're doing it all for free. And it's just, I really want to show my respect for that too. If they're doing that, I certainly want to make myself available to them.
Can I follow up with one? I mean, we do have some committees that, we have no issue getting people, but we have other committees where it's difficult to get a quorum. There's not a lot of enthusiasm about those. Do you have any ideas, or have you had to spark, community involvement to populate committees?
Yeah, that's been a tough one, especially in the last, I've noticed, about 5 or 6 years. It just seems you've had so many committees that are either understaffed, and some even to the point where they couldn't even get a quorum to act. The only thing, and it's tough, obviously, you try to get the message out. One thing I have done is try to, you'll have your certain citizens that are really involved. I always call it the 2 or 3% will come in and see you quite often. And if those people seem, fair and ethical and everything, I try to encourage people like that, if they're interested in the community. I don't say, I'm not going to recommend you anything, but, point out that there's something there. And, people that I may see that just point them to, we need someone in this area. one of the ways. Two, just keeping the ads on the websites, making sure that, I've seen this ad, in place we had flashing red letters to trans. Someone said, that's too gaudy. I didn't do that, the secretary did, but I said, let's leave it because we need people so bad. It's amazing how hard it is to get people nowadays to do that. And it's a big sacrifice though, so. But no, other than that, I try to keep trying to think of new ways to do that, but, new people in, new people.
Could I do a follow-up here instead of at the end, because it involves committees? We have by bylaw in our bylaws, an insurance advisory committee, and it has been inactive for a number of years. And we make motions and, go through, try to start it up, and then it falls by the wayside. And I feel that this is a critical piece that needs to be, this is one committee that really needs to be enforced. As you said, you had communities with over 20 committees. We have, I think, more than that, whether they're active or not.
Yeah,
We have them.
that was the active ones, yeah.
They're on the books. So how would you suggest jump-starting an insurance advisory committee?
I presume, well, it doesn't really matter, but is it the insurance for the town, you mean, or advising on what we need?
It needs like a member from union and,
Yeah.
I forget the composition.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, to go out and look at like health insurance and,
Oh, so it's more about the members would be of the staff rather
Yeah.
than of the community? You probably have one for the community
one
or
for the
something.
community, I
That
think one
sounds
select
sensible.
board member advisory.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, I don't know if it makes it easier, but I found I've had less problem with getting positions filled in committees that were filled by staff. And the reason being not because I put pressure on anyone to join, but I really, as I mentioned before, I really run a collaborative workplace. And I really feel that involving people, involving the staff, getting them feeling, really involved in what they're doing helps them. Because I've really never had any problem, at least after I've been there a while, getting people, getting staff members to fill those slots. Doesn't mean it's going to always work here, but I'm hoping that my approach would help. And if I did have to ask, try to just say, we really need you, we think you're important for this position. But again, I think just the way you approach and work with and build that team atmosphere has always helped me in the past to keep staff involved. Just by also having constant meetings where I invite my staff to talk, not just me, but them to talk as well. And I've noticed more and more as that goes on, you have more talk and more involvement, and departments will start talking between each other. And, because others will hear what others are doing. And it just makes more of a holistic approach. That's one way that I think makes that easier.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Selectman Columbus.
Why should we hire you over another people?
Well, that's always a tough question, because I'm sure the competition is, since some are very disqualified. I hope I don't consider this an eluding question, but I'm going to just point out some things that I think make me a good fit for the position. Number one, it's always got to be number one, as I have been in some tough situations, financial and otherwise, financial specifically, with communities. Even talking about the financial aspect again, all of my communities have either been very frugal in nature. We've had to run on very tight budgets, even when we didn't have a crisis. So I'm very used to doing that. As I say, I think it's going to be, at least for a while, that way here. So I think that's one thing. I think, and I may have mentioned this first interview, I know you're getting someone very well-rounded who can work with, as your previous question actually, Mr. Columbus, was, why do I like a professional? It's because of all of these different things. You're not only a multitasker, but a multi-professionalist as well. You can't be an expert in all of them, but you have a working vocabulary, a working understanding of them, a very well-rounded understanding of the private sector as well as the public sector, because you're working nonprofits and everything else in the community. So well-roundedness is another one. I thought I worked very well with the public, as we talked about. Enjoy those three areas that I think are so important for municipal or any organization really. Working with the staff, working with the public, and making sure the finances are in good shape. Budgeting. Basically, and I've worked in all my communities. I've worked in the full-service communities. So I've, similar to this population, my top was about 10,000, and the staff and the budget was about the same. So, and worked in had all department heads, whether utilities. So worked in full-service governments, so I know all of pretty much the whole gamut of what to expect. Those are some of the things that come to mind.
To wrap up, do any members of the board have any additional questions that they would like to ask? Yes.
What's your work experience has been in New Hampshire?
New Hampshire and Maine.
In Maine?
Yep,
Okay.
I worked 5 years 4.5 years in Maine, 3 in New Hampshire, and then I had a 6-month stint in Vermont.
Okay.
So I've worked in 3 different
So,
states.
yeah, you've been around now.
Yeah.
I think there's significant differences between state-local relations in each of those states. Do you have any feel for how it is in Massachusetts?
Yes, and there was differences in those states, definitely. And that's another thing I would say I think all the other people from Mass, but if they weren't, I would say that as a positive, because I've had no problem getting used to the new laws in states. And I've learned a lot about Mass. I've had a few interviews in Mass, and this one I've done a lot of research on, and learned about, I think, as much as you can without actually being here and doing it. And I don't really have any worry about that, because I did transition from those other states quite a bit, and they were quite different. Maine, for example, is a very home rule state, strong home rule. New Hampshire is still what they call a Dillon rule state, meaning the state tells you what you can do and you can't. Mass seems to be somewhere in between there, from what I gather. And so there definitely is differences, but I've navigated them well, and I've always made it a point, and got a lot of friends in the state government that I've worked with. It's similar though in New England. One good thing is that you still got the town meetings. I've worked in various forms of that, direct and as well as ballot type town meeting towns. So that's one thing. In New England, the way we work in New England here. And it seems like in other parts of the nation, they can't understand how we can still have a town meeting. So that's one thing. But no, I haven't had any problems, and I have done a lot of research on that, so I think I understand it pretty well.
What do you think of Proposition 2.5?
That's an interesting one, yeah, and it was interesting to see the history of it. I knew what it was, but then it came into being right after, one of the first states after California started this, of course. And, what was that, Proposition 8? 13, that's what it was. So I'm very familiar with that, the 2.5%, and I also seen the rigors of getting it passed from here and other communities as well, if you need it. It's interesting. I think it's good in the sense that it still allows, if the town wants to vote to override it, they can. Yeah, they're restricted somewhat, but it is given there if the town feels strong enough it can override it. So it's a way of keeping taxes in check. So I don't think it's a bad thing, but just because you can be overridden, so it gives the community a chance.
Thank you very much. Are there any additional questions from the board? If not, do you have any additional questions for us? Or would you like to make a closing statement or anything kind of as a last?
Well, I think my closing statement, I kind of would just refer back to the last question from Mr. Columbus there about why I would be a good pick. Again, very well-rounded in government and local government, and specifically have worked in a lot of crisis situations and things like we're going through now. So I think it's a very good fit. That's kind of a closing statement. I guess probably I won't hold you up. I don't have any other questions now. I feel I know it so much. I've watched every one of your videos over the last 2 months, so I know the issues you're facing. It would be redundant for me to ask you what you're going to do with that. Obviously, the big questions of the day. And, I just might ask one other thing that obviously you've gotten down to 2 now, and I didn't know if you had an idea on timeline after tonight.
Well, we would need someone that would probably start July 1, so we better make that decision quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, so I would imagine that somebody would be in contact with you probably in the next 10 days or so, I would think roughly. Thank you. If there's nothing else, well, thank you very much for coming down.
Well started.
Thank you.
Very good seeing you. Brett, thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's nice to see you again.
And our second candidate that we will be interviewing, a final one, is Mr. McDonald, who I believe is here. Is he in the hall?
Yes, yes.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
How are you?
Yep, sure. And we, as had requested a 3 to 5 minute kind of presentation about the towns, and we have elected to start with that prior to our questions, so if that works for you. The floor is yours, yep.
Thank you.
I guess if I stand over here, I can see everybody now. Got my back to everybody.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank the board for having this opportunity to come back for a second time to talk to you about the future of Templeton, where I see it going. The first thing that I would do in this budget is I would recommend that I take a pay cut as administrator, showing that leadership by me standing up and saying, I'm willing to stand with you, because I know that many people got laid off, many people are not coming back, and I've been through this 3 times. 2 times as a selectman, 1 time as an administrator. And it's the hardest thing that anybody has to do, is tell somebody they don't have a job. And it's not because of their fault, it's because of the economy and the way everything played out over the last few years with the finance team. The second thing I would do is I would meet with all the department heads to build a strong financial foundation, that we all talk together, that we sit down and try to solve the problem as a team, because that's how we're gonna solve this problem. No other way. When I was in Chester, I sat down with everybody and we worked through the problem. People came up with great ideas, people were there to make it work, and it took us 18 months, but we got out of it. And we were able to end up with surplus and receive almost $11.8 million in state and federal grants during that period of time. The next thing that I would focus on is to move the senior center and the fire department. I've already talked with the stakeholders and the state government and the federal government about securing $200,000 to finish the senior center and $50,000 for the fire department they need for protective gear. And I've already talked to Homeland Security about the grant program that they have, and I've already talked to our reps in the district, and I've already talked to other people in the district that are very supportive. The next thing I would do is I'd go to the state and ask for a one-time emergency funding for $750,000. They gave other communities in Massachusetts money of relief because of financial restraints. That would be the next thing I would do. I would meet, and I've already met with 2 of the stakeholders and asked them about support for the money. So I would go back to solidify that and see if we could make that work. The next thing I would do is I would make sure I look for every grant there was for fiscal year 15 to help the town get through this problem and find a resolution so that we're stable. Because there's nothing worse than being in red ink. And that would be the first thing that I would focus on. The next thing I would do is I would look at the payroll. I see that they're paying out $12,000 a year for payroll for Harper's. I would bring it in-house with the new finance team and do it in-house and save that type of, $12,000. The second thing I would look at is the $18,000 for the phone bill to find out if there's other options that we could reduce that. In Chester, we were able to reduce ours. So I don't know all the players or the stakeholders here, but that's something that caught my eye, and I thought it was a lot of money. The other thing is probably it was already been done, but I would look at refinancing long-term debt to see if that has been maximized to the reduced number. The other thing I would do is find out the town adopted Chapter 32B, Section 18 for the federal health insurance plan. I don't know if they did, but if they didn't, I would move forward to have that done. Next thing I would do is I would work with the assessor and the board to move forward the solar project to make sure that we were getting our share of money and revenue. Other communities around here got more money than Templeton did. So that'd be the first thing I would do is look at that. Next thing I've already talked to a couple of people on this and at the state level, is I would apply for the town for economic development target area. What it would allow us to be special, to get grants and be ahead of other people in other communities by applying for this grant program. It would enable us to write tax incentive finance programs for businesses so they can expand, or to help new people come in, or designate an area where there's commercial land and we could use that. I've already talked to a couple key people in the administration, and they're very supportive of doing this because of the financial restraints that you face right now. So that was a positive thing this past week. The other thing I would do is look at regionalization and consolidation of services to try to maximize everything to see what can work and what doesn't work. And work with department heads and get their input and say, does this work? If it doesn't work, well, let's try this. But have their input so I have a foresight where we're going to go and how to make it work. The other thing that I see that is vital is to have a long-term financial plan. First thing is to make sure every month that every department head, the selectmen and advisory board gets a budget to see what's going on every month. Second thing is I want to know the cash flow of every month, how much money we have on reserve each month, so we're not surprised that we have this major shortfall. The other thing I would do is set up a development team of finance people and put together a 3 to 5 year revenue expenditure forecast so that we know where we are financially and what we got for new growth, what we don't have for new growth. The town of Templeton dropped drastically after 2008 in new growth. It went from like 28,000 to 28 million to 3 million. So you had the 5 good years from 2003 to 2008 that the growth was phenomenal. Then after that it dropped off because of the economy. The other thing that I would look at is weekly department head meetings till we got on our feet and we were strong and financially secure, because that way they know what's going on every week and there's no surprises, and keep the board informed of where we're going to be, what problems are on the horizon, how do we work through it and find a resolution. The other thing that I would do is I gave you 2 copies, one of the budget of areas and the other one was to encumber. I would encumber money to offset some of the drastic losses that departments have taken. I went through, and you can look in the yellow on the budget and where I encumbered to see, like, you put in $22,000 for the audit. There's $15,000 left over from this year. I would move that over so that we could use that to find some way to work within what we have for a structure so that we can have some people that we could bring back. The other thing I would look at is fees for all the departments. See if we can enhance fees to offset with stipends. We did it in my community, worked out very well. The other thing I would look at is on our debt structure. If we have a 15-year debt restructure, can we make it by changing the interest would reduce time in that debt structure? Then I see areas that I would look at is like bringing in new personnel. There's a ceiling, but I would start at a lower ceiling and a lower pay grade and work up instead of starting at the max. Find, where you can say, okay, if you got 80 to 90 to play with, so you work 80 to 85 or 88 to see if you can fill in so you can pick up revenue there. The key is we have to pick up key places and key personnel, because the highway department took massive cuts. The police department took massive cuts. So those are areas that the public needs. They need safety and they need to be able to get to work. So that's one of the areas that we'd have to look at. The next thing we're gonna have to look at is the Board of Health. You can't function without the Board of Health. We have to find a resolution, how to come up with money to put the Board of Health back to where they can function, where the town can function. The other thing we need to do is the building inspector. You can't move without the building inspector because it's vital for permitting and process. So it's vital that we focus to see how we can make that work and where we can take revenue to move revenue with the help of the board, the finance committee, to sit down and say, okay, we have money here, we can move it over here, because those are two critical functions in the town. Somebody's got to do the inspections of Title V. Somebody's got to write off on the inspections for the building to make sure it's safe for the public. And we need to look at, how to work. How do we get to that number so that we have personnel that will be able to cover it? Is it going to be perfect? No. Do I have a magic wand that's going to make it all the way? No. All I can do is use the resources that I've done before, move forward within the system, and try to use that with what knowledge I have. Now, I bring 20 years of experience. I've served 3 years on the school committee, 3 years on the finance committee, 9 years as selectman, 2 times as chairman. So I bring that background on top of being a town administrator. I understand what you have to do and how to make things work. And I'm not bashful to go to the state and ask them for assistance because they've helped other communities. I've already done all the research. I've already put it all together. I've already met with them and said, look, you did this for this town, you did this for this town, and you did this for this town. So people going, okay, we're open to seeing what we can do to help you. Because you're not here because you drove yourself here. You're here because of things that happened that were not in your control. You had people that came and went, you didn't have longevity, and that's vital for a town, is longevity. One thing I learned in the finance world, being a selectman, is when you don't have top people in your departments, you end up with a deficit. We ended up with a $1.2 million deficit in 2009. So it's vital that the finance team and the department heads are all part of this program to move forward. And my final note is that I'm one of these persons, what I say I do. I'll be here 7 days a week if it makes it work. Whatever I have to do, I will do to be a leader to show that I'm doing what I want you to do, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna walk the walk and do the talk. I'm not gonna go home at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock and go, that's my day. Whatever has to be done to make the town work and put it in the black. And I would say, the way I look at everything and I look at all the finances, in less than 12 months, we'll be in the black. On that, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yep, sure. Have a seat, thank you. And we'll, we have, as we did before, a list of questions and that we will go through the same questions that we're asking to both candidates. Our first question is from Selectman Morrison.
What do you hope to accomplish in your first 2 years on the job?
Bring the town to be stable, that the department heads and I and the board and the finance advisory board have a good relationship, that we work as a team, we develop a strong relationship for one purpose only, is to move the town forward and make the town respectful again, and that people know that we're spending every dollar wisely, and we're doing the most we can with little resources we have.
Okay.
Okay.
What's that?
Our next question is from Selectwoman Farrell.
It's a two-part question.
Okay.
After working on this job for 1 year, what will people living in Templeton say about you, both positively and negatively?
Positively, that he's an aggressive person, that he goes out and gets what he says he's gonna do and get it done. And probably negatively would be that I'm slow to respond on issues that need time to analyze to make sure you make the right decision. I don't make quick decisions.
Our next question is from Selectwoman Haley Brooks, when she is done reading.
Sorry, it takes me a little bit of time, I'm just trying to make my notes.
Yeah, please do that.
The page wasn't stuck together. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
If you should be offered the position, do you feel that you will be willing to travel daily to and from work on a long-term basis?
No, I would move. I have family here. My daughter is a teacher for the Quabbin School District, and my son's an engineer for Intel. So my family is in Holden and in Barry.
Great, thank you.
Our next question is from Selectman Columbus.
What kind of work interests you the most, and what are you passionate about?
Public policy. This is the only job that you can get gratification by doing one thing to help one person to make a difference in their life. As we say here, we're here because we want to be here. I mean, I made the sacrifice commuting to college, worked all day, go to school at night to be in this position, run for office, be an administrator. This is the only reward that I see personally that you get from working in government, that you can show at the end of the day that you did something. I had a college professor once say that if you leave the building every day at the end of your work shift and you did one good thing, then you made an accomplishment that day. So I've always believed that. Okay, thank you.
I have the next question, sorry. Okay, Templeton is a small town. Our citizens expect their public officials to be available and accessible to them. How do you interact with citizens, and what concrete actions have you taken in your previous jobs to improve direct services and communication with citizens?
Well, one thing I've done is I made sure I went to the town meeting, and I networked at the town meeting, met a lot of people from the school committee, the superintendents, and department heads, regular citizens, and got an idea of what they were looking at and where they were seeing the town going. One thing that I do is I made sure that in the town that I was in, that I got out and went to all the functions. So people knew who I was, that I had an open door policy, that I wasn't somebody that was a ghost, that I made sure that I went to every single event and got to meet everybody. I served on other committees, other than being an administrator. I was on the planning board, the zoning board, the conservation commission, the library commission, and the transfer station. So I had that on top of it, so I was very busy doing other activities to get to know people, because once the public knows you and you know the public, it makes it easier for the transition, because people go, he's a worker, he's hard, he wants to be here, he enjoys his job, he wants to be in the public's eye, he wants the public to know that that door is open anytime you can call me, and I will get back to you. I will not procrastinate. That's one of my priorities, is to always make sure that I call people back and take care of their issue, no matter how big it is or how small it is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I ask one follow-up question?
Yep, sure.
Again, with an open door policy and being involved in all that, how do you manage your time with all the demands of this job in the current crisis that we're in also? How would you do that?
I probably would sleep here.
Sorry, it's not going for that.
I mean,
Down the road.
because you have to take a priority. When I went through the same thing that you've gone through, you have to put a lot of time in and sit down and analyze and look at every avenue that you can to make this work. People are looking to you right now for the first administrator to come in and the board to correct a lot of bad years. The only way you do that is you have to be the person that leads the charge and put the time in to make it work. I don't plan on leaving at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. You know, I plan on leaving when I'm done to make sure everything's taken care of. And I want people to see me and I want to be visible because I think it's important. There's a lot of mistrust right now in this transition of government. I heard a lot of people at the town meeting over the 3 days that I went would say, this government, you know, they're not really for us. They're kind of taking care of themselves. And I would say, no. I said, if you look at what they just did, they all stuck together at a town meeting to move the town forward. Before there was bickering, people were fighting over everything, and now you have a board that has a philosophy, a direction, and they know where they want this town to be. It's my job to do that, to make it work and get to that resolution that the people put trust back into government, that they respect government. People work hard, department heads, the people that work for this town go to work because they want to. And they're in such a crisis right now, they're being shot at for no reason at all. It's my job to deflect that, to show that we're here as a team and we're gonna make Templeton a very good community to live in.
Well said.
Thank you.
Our next question is from Selectwoman Farrell.
Do you feel it is more important to focus on town operations or public relations? And please explain your response.
I think they both go hand in hand, because you gotta be a good public relation person to get your message out. And you need to be part of the town to get the process done. So it's vital that you're the person there, that people know that you're not giving them the BS, that you're really focusing on the best interests of town. You're giving them truthful information. You're not giving them something just to get rid of it. You really starting to focus on what you have to do as a leader in the community. And people look to their leaders to get the direction they want, where they want the town to be. And that's how you gain their respect. If you're a straight shooter, you tell them what you think, you tell them from the heart, they're gonna give you tons of leeway to move forward and do what's right. Because right now, there's no easy way. Whatever you do, you're stepping on eggs and you're making omelets. So you just gotta do the best you can and control what's going on and be honest with the public and let them know what's happening. Don't lie to them.
Thank you.
And our next question is from Selectwoman Haley Brooks.
Can you describe for us a very difficult performance issue you've had to deal with? What made it difficult and how did you handle it? For example, have you ever had to fire someone? And what steps did you take and how did you handle that?
Well, I've been down that road of firing a person. I fired a town accountant. We went through the process of, took the policy and procedure handbook, and we met with town council, and we went through every step by step. We wrote the person up, put the person in, we went through the whole procedure to make sure that we covered every step. And one thing that I look at back now, I'm so happy that we did, because the person that we let go filed against us mass discrimination, and we won our case, because we did everything by the book. When we went before the hearing, we were able to produce all the documents to show that we did 5 steps before we terminated the person.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And our next question is from Selectman Morrison.
Templeton is blessed with many interested and capable citizens who are interested in serving the town committees. With your experience working with citizens committees, what do you feel is the town administrator's proper role with citizens committees appointed by the selectmen to address a specific issue?
Make sure that you provide all the information they need, to be a sounding board to make sure they comply with statute and the open meeting law. Make sure that they know that you're there to be part of their operation, whatever they're doing, that they can facilitate what they're spending their free time on to move the town forward. So it's my job to make sure that whatever I can give to them or participate to make the transition so they achieve their goals. That's the objective, is make sure that they're achieving their goals, what they want from their committees, that they spend hundreds of hours in a year doing it for nothing.
Do you think the town administrator should sit as a member on any committee? For example, capital planning?
My last board let me, it's the discretion of the board. I think it's vital that the administrator is on the key positions in the community to listen where they're going, what they need, how they want. If the board was against it, I wouldn't do it. But I mean, I think it's important, from all the things that I've done in my political career and administrator, it's important to be a stakeholder in major planning and change events, zoning, and you want to know what's going on. You want to know what the change is, so that you're able to tell the board, this is what's going to happen. They're looking to change that, so you have that information. So if the board gave me the direction to do it, I would do it. But I wouldn't do it without board approval.
So, in your opinion, should the town administrator just be just a listening type participant in a committee, or should they be a regular committee member just like anyone else on the committee?
Well, my previous job, I was a member of the board, and I was able to speak and bring information forward to move the town forward. So my position is that either way, you're effective. So it's the discretion of the board. My previous board they wanted me to. If this board did not have that position, then I wouldn't violate what you wanted me to do. But I would participate to the best of my ability to give them the right information.
Thanks.
Could I have a follow-up?
Oh, sure.
Okay. One of the committees that has languished has been the Insurance Advisory Committee to negotiate different rates for health insurance. And what would you do to jumpstart that committee? It's probably been at least 6 years since that committee has met.
Well, first thing I do is I tell the lady reporter to put out a message that I'm looking for people to come to join me on the insurance committee so that we can move forward. The second thing, I'm already certified in procurement in Massachusetts, so I already have background because I did the certification. When we went out to get new insurance, I wrote all the information and did that, and we went together to bring that information. So we were able to cut our insurance bill by $44,000 for our town. So I have that knowledge already of what has to be done, what are the steps, and where to look for the best rate. So those are the things that I would do. And I'd ask the board how many people they wanted for a 5-member board, 3-member board, and I'd get an idea from the board what they thought was appropriate.
Thank you.
Thanks. Our next question is from Selectman Columbus.
Why should we hire you over another candidate?
First of all, my 20 years experience in town government. I'm certified in procurement. I have a very good relationship with the stakeholders in Massachusetts. As I said previously, I received over $11.8 million in grant money. I just got $6.5 million in a new road project. I've learned how to work within the system, where to go, and I don't have to develop a new Rolodex to find people to be able to get information. As I said last week, I had a busy week talking to a lot of people to support this town to move forward, to get funding, and I looked at resources that I think we're going to be able to receive. And the other thing that I bring is continuity, that I've done the job. I know what Massachusetts, all 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts operate under the same law. None are different. They all are in the same statute. I don't have to learn the statute. I understand the statute. I know where to go within the statute because I bring legislative experience working for the Speaker of the House. I bring that together in my background. And the other thing that I do is being an elected official, you know what it's like to sit on this side of the table, listen to people's concerns. I served on the school committee and the finance committee. So when you put that all together, I'm well-rounded. And if I remember correctly, town meeting wanted certified people to be the leaders in the community. And that was one of the articles that was held.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Are there any further questions from any select board members?
Just one. In your presentation that you did at the beginning, which is a very good presentation, you had a very lofty list of goals to accomplish, all very important and all needed right away. How would you be able to accomplish those considering the very limited staff that we have? You're only going to have one person in the office to help you. Are you, more of a roll up your sleeves, get it done versus delegating or trying to bring in? I mean, teams work well, so bringing other people in is not a bad thing. But how would you go about accomplishing this list of goals, considering the limited staff that you would have?
Okay, first of all, it would be an upstart for me because I never had an assistant. I did everything myself.
Okay.
All the committees, everything I did was on my time. So having an assistant as capable as Howie, I'd be in heaven, because that means I would have more free time to do other things, because before I had to do everything.
Yeah.
So now I can focus on the key areas. And right now, the key areas is finance. We have to find a level playing field for fiscal 15 to get out of the red, to get in the black. So my time would be spent really focusing on how do we do that? How do we get money from the state? How do we find other avenues, looking at insurance, liability insurance, looking at everything that's in front of us. If I had the records to go through everything, I would have come up with a lot more, but I didn't have that. But once I have the records, and with Howie's assistant, I mean, we'll go to town, because I know what I'm looking for, because I've done it. I've been down that road. I know who to call, where to go, and analyze to make this work. And the other thing is, you need your department heads to be part of this. I can't do it by myself. There's no way. I have to have that. And the reason I recommended that I would take less money is to show them they're taking cuts. They're being laid off. I want to be part of that. And I did that in Chester for 3 years. I reduced my pay until we got out of the crisis. So I think it's important that you show by example. And I was always known as the person that ran the midnight oil. You could come by, I'd be at town hall Saturdays, Sundays, whatever I had to do to make it work. And that's why we were successful, because I was there. And people will verify it. They used to call me the midnight oil person. They said, you never go home. I go, well, until we get out of this financial mess, you need to know what's going on, you need to be involved. And then when you go to somebody, and you can tell them, like when I went to the state, Wednesday and had lunch with a couple of people I knew, I said, we need your help. The town has not come to you before. Because I looked up to see what you have for revenue, and you haven't received. I said, I need that to move the town forward. I need to make sure the fire department, when they go out, they have protective gear, because they need $50,000. You can't send a woman in harm's way, I need $50,000. That's what I'm asking for. And I went and saw the feds too, and I already met with them and said, I know there's money in this program, I'd like to receive that. So I look at avenues to put together a time element to make it work. And I manage my time very well, I'm not a procrastinator. When you work in the legislative branch and you used to work 24 hours a day, 3 days in a row, and you were sleeping in your chair because we were in the last 2 days of our budget cycle, and we weren't going home until we had a budget, you learn to be very effective.
Anything else? Okay, if not, do you have any questions for us?